Hi there, and welcome to Southern Summers and Northern Winters. How are you today, Mark?
Hey, Anders, I'm doing fine. Another hot day here in Australia. I reckon every time we pick to do a podcast, it seems to be 35 degrees outside, and today's been no different. Tomorrow's only going to be 18, apparently, so half the temperature of today. So one thing Victoria or Melbourne is, our area is certainly known for, is dramatic swings in weather temperatures.
Oh, we can do the same here. But it's not that dramatic. But we have days with ice and snow coming, and today it's just like a balmy 8-9 degrees and rain. So, but that's like 15 degrees difference, maybe not like yours.
So tonight we've got my daughter on board here, Willow. Willow, hang on, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Willow.
So as we've spoke about before on the podcast, Willow lives in China. She's just home in Australia at the moment for a 2-week stint in order to get her student visa, which we found out was approved today after we went to Melbourne on Monday and put it in. So she's got to go back to Melbourne tomorrow and pick up her student visa, and then back to Qingdao in China next Friday.
Next Friday, okay. And how is what's the difference between the visa she had and the visa she's getting now?
So I had a tourism visa for China, which was 1 year with multiple entries.
Okay.
Now, the visa I'm getting is called an X1 visa. So it's the long-term study option, which is over 180 days. That one, you can only enter the country once, and you have to go to the police station to register where you're staying and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. So this time you will not need to go for the next 180 days. You won't need to go back to Australia, but at the same time you cannot go back to Australia. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I've got it for 355 days because I'll be studying for 345 over there.
Okay.
So I won't be able to leave the country, but I can go to the police station in a couple months afterwards and register with them to get multiple entries on my visa instead.
Okay, cool. And what are you going to study?
So right now I'm just doing a language course, for Chinese, Mandarin. But then after that, Tia and Gary want me to do a teaching an international business course.
Oh, cool.
Tia and Gary are the people I work for.
Yeah, okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Okay.
So Willow
cool.
is sort of cool. Lives with Tia and Gary on a cultural exchange. In exchange for accommodation and food and board, she does a little bit of babysitting or pairing, childminding for their kid a few hours a day. So
yes, of course.
That's the story of that.
That's I guess that's how you do it. I mean, international students. I mean, it's one of the biggest costs is the cost of living. So anywhere you can reduce those costs. I mean, we see it all the time here. Munich is a huge city with 2 or 3 universities. So we've got a lot of international students here, a lot of, a huge international environment, a lot of expats, and the cost of living is just ridiculous. So I know a lot of people, they come here, they study, they live with families, and they help out in order to, be of use and to reduce the cost of living for them. So it's, it works the same way everywhere, I guess.
Cost of living is definitely an issue for everyone, no matter, I guess, isn't it, these days?
It is, unfortunately, yeah. So, Willow, tell me, in the West, we do not hear a lot about living in China, obviously, because it's influenced by mass media and the political agenda at the moment. But I guess, everyday life in China, what's that like?
It's definitely not how it's portrayed like over here.
No.
I do everything I do here, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's no difference. Like, I get up in the morning, I have breakfast, I have lunch, I have dinner, I look after Gracie. I can still use my phone, and like it is a little bit more hard because you do have to use like VPNs and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise, like everything's pretty much the exact same. Arguably, I would say a lot of things over there are much more convenient. So like I use WeChat for everything pretty much. I can book medical services on there. I can book hotels and trains, and I can top up my phone all in one app.
Okay.
And pay for things on there and chat to people. Like a lot of things over there are just combined services.
Yeah. So that's a lot different from, for instance, you can a doctor's appointment. You can book that. You said?
Yeah, I can book everything.
Okay, because that's something that, for instance, in Germany, we're very much behind in terms of digital evolution. They are very reserved, the Germans in general. So everything is old fashioned. If you get a doctor's appointment, you maybe you will need medication. You will have to get a physical recipe to go to the pharmacy. They're trying with an electronic sort of notice to the pharmacy, but it's only for certain medications. Not if you need something a little harder, then you will have to get a piece of paper with a stamp on it. So that's very old fashioned. It's good to hear. This sounds a bit more like my native Denmark, where everything has been electronic for the past 20 years. So yeah. So that's cool. So what's your everyday life? What's that like? Talk about a typical day. You get up in the morning.
Yeah. So after I get up, usually we have breakfast. So the way that things work for me is that I look after Gracie during the day, and then I have like a very short like break at some point during the day. So in the morning I wake up. Gracie's grandparents are at the house always when I'm there. And I wake up, we have breakfast together as like a little like family group. Mm-hmm. Then usually I'll be looking after Gracie for the morning. We play, we read books. She really, really loves my room because she really likes like Australian snacks. Loves shapes right now. That's her favorite. But then we'll have like lunch. Usually for me and our family, soup is a big thing. We eat a lot of soup. And then side dishes. Yeah. What's the one you guys like? The cucumber? Yeah, it's like a cucumber salad in vinegar and soy sauce.
Oh, sounds delicious.
Yeah. And then, it's more play in the afternoon. I have a break. And Gracie's grandparents look after her. And then it's dinner time. Gary and Tia get back from work. But right now it's changing a little bit. Gracie had her first couple of days at kinder recently. So she's a bit feral right now. Big long days.
Yeah. So how are you continue? You will stay with that family for the next period where you're going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. We're all like really good friends. Gary and because I'm the eldest, so I don't really know how that feels. But they're great.
Okay, cool. That sounds interesting. Talk about the food there? What's the biggest surprise that you've had in terms of food that you actually like but thought you wouldn't like if you've had an experience like that?
Yeah, I've actually talked to Mum and Dad about this a lot. I actually really like beef tripe. So like beef stomach.
Okay.
It's not like very flavorful, but you have it in like hot pot a lot.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just a texture thing. It's so good.
I couldn't.
I thought I'd hate it, but it's delicious.
So what's the texture like? It's like
It's
minced
really
beef?
no. It's like it's really hard to explain. It's kind of chewy,
Yeah.
but like because it's got like bumps and stuff all over it. It just like it feels weird against your tongue, but it's really good.
Okay. Because that's the thing. My impression of Chinese kitchen is that, they will eat anything from the animal.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a Western culture thing. I'm just not, accustomed to eating anything from an animal. It's just
Yeah.
so yeah. But that it sounds like something you should try. Have you had that, Mark?
I haven't, but it's quite strange. We were at the Melbourne market the other day and we were walking around through the meat section, and at the end of like one of the stalls, there was all these cut-offs of bones with meat and stuff on them, and they were like really cheap here in Australia, and most Australians wouldn't buy it, but that's the sort of things that go into most Chinese dishes, like bones cut up still with bits of meat on them and things like that, because they chew the meat off it or suck the meat off it, had the marrow out of the bones and things like that. Like that's really popular sort of style to put in dishes in China that we sort of don't really utilize a lot in the West. We're more, fillets of meat, cuts of meat instead of bits with bones in them, and things like that. So,
yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I'm just thinking, if you were to have in the Western world, if we were to have a little bit more logic to the way we eat, we could actually we could utilize food ingredients much more than we do. I mean, it's
most definitely. I would say in China they waste very little of anything. They use all of what they can use of the animal and more. Whereas we in the West probably don't. Like I said, we like the prime cuts.
Exactly.
Cow or chicken's probably the closest animal that we eat nearly most of. But as for beef, we like the fillets and I don't know what they call it in Germany. In Australia, they call it porterhouse and rump and sirloin and
exactly.
cuts like that that we like as prime cuts. Which in China they're more likely to use the bits with the bone and things like that, because I guess that's what they have always used. So
but
you can still get prime cuts of steak and stuff like that. There's certainly plenty of steak restaurants around, but they're probably for the upper class more than anyone in China.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like usually what like we eat are like soups. So you could buy lots of soup bones and stuff. I like have eating like at home, or like chome as we call it, my Chinese home.
Yeah.
I don't really eat like steak or anything. Sometimes I cook for like my Chinese family, but it's always a bit like different because
adventurous.
It's so different. yeah. They're always like, "Oh, what's this?" They always try it though. They're very, very good sports. I'm very happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think in the entire time I've been there I've eaten like steak or anything. It's always bone in, which is something like it's still a little bit like I'm trying to get used to.
Yeah.
It's just but everything's bone in, everything's like fully flavored. It's great.
Okay, and would you say that the Chinese kitchen is like healthier, or what's because we in the West we tend to eat like a lot of salt and fat and just not always or sweet. We use a lot of sugar in our food.
I'm not sure if I would say healthier. Like probably yeah, but I think with the wider array of ingredients and the way things are prepared, less oil is used in a lot of things. There's not as much bread or stuff like that eaten.
Yeah.
So that like kind of contributes to it.
Yeah. I can imagine. Do you miss bread then? Because I would.
Sometimes, yeah. The bread over there is like kind of different to the bread here. It's sweet. No matter how they make it, it's always just a little bit sweet.
Okay.
And every time I bite into it, I'm just like,
yeah,
I want normal bread.
Because Mark, you said that they don't have an oven in a private house, or usually don't have an oven. So baking bread, I guess, is something they don't do.
Yeah. Well, we do. I think the closest thing I eat on a regular basis to bread is like they're called meat pies, but they're not like Australian pies or anything. They're very like flat. They're kind of like more like pita breads.
Yeah.
Like
a pizza base.
Yeah.
Like sort of two pizza bases with something shoved in between them. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sort of more like you would say two pizza bases with a filling in between them.
Oh,
like, yeah. So a bit like that.
Okay, but the bread is in that case not as sweet, or no. Okay.
So usually, my nana, which is like my Chinese grandma, she like fresh makes it, so it's not sweet. But if you're just buying like store-bought bread, then it's always just a little bit sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because they use sugar as a taste enhancer. That's
Well, you can often buy like a single slice of bread, like with chocolate swirl through it, or pandam, which is the green Asian flavoring. So yeah, you can just buy a single thick slice of, I'd say, dessert bread, I would call it, but they might just eat it as a snack. But yeah, you don't often see like a bakery like you would see in Germany or in Australia with 10 or 15 different types of, bread and loaves with seeds and breadsticks and, stuff like that. In China, well, I haven't anyway. Like if you go to the supermarket, there might be a couple of different types of bread on the shelf that, that are mass produced, obviously from some factory somewhere, probably, that are shipped out each day. But yeah, as for just the traditional bakery, I don't know. Now, you went to Paris Baguette a fair bit. Did they have a lot of different bread?
Not really. So like a lot of the bakery styled restaurants or like places to go, they will always it's mostly sweet. Like it's somewhere people go usually to actually buy presents for people that they know. My favorite, I like one called Downtown Bakery. It's in one of the food streets in Qingdao, and it's delicious. They do a really good baguette. It's not sweet at all, but like a lot of the time they do pretzels as well, like the bread ones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like the Bavarian ones.
Yeah, I was just going to say they can't do it like we can do it, I'm sure.
No, surely not. Need a bit of, the big chunks of salt on it, and have it with a litre stein of beer, and away you go, don't you?
Yeah,
eh?
exactly. That's the way we like it here.
It is. So, Willow, tell us about the prices in China. Is it dear to buy food and eat out?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's so cheap, actually. If you're going to like a Western restaurant, it's like pretty expensive. But
what's
if you're
that?
eating it,
What's that, Willow? What's pretty expensive? Is there a comparison like in Australian dollars or?
Yeah, so I'd say probably individually, if you're eating at a Western restaurant, you'd be looking at spending maybe 60 RMB a person, which is like, no, it's like 15, 20 bucks. So it's still cheap.
Oh, okay, for me, that sounds cheap for me, but I mean,
yeah. But if you're eating at actual like Chinese restaurants, a lot of the time you're only paying about 15 RMB for like a bowl of noodles or something, which is like $3.
Okay.
So if you look at it like compared to that, it's more expensive.
Okay, I can see. Okay, that anything in comparison. I mean, wow, that's cheap. You can actually get a good meal for like $3.
And the bowls they're always really, really huge.
Yeah,
like serving wise, everything here is really big. Even like beer is really cheap here as well, or in Qingdao.
Yeah.
Because Qingdao has its own brewery because it was a German like settlement for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm not a beer girly, but Qingdao beer changed me.
I'm trying to think where we ate out in China, and one of the really only places that I can think of was we were at a hotel in Beijing where we stayed in September with Willow as well. And we had a buffet dinner, so all you can eat. And there was pork knuckle, lamb chops, steak and all this sort of stuff on the menu, as much as you could eat. And I think it was around $25 Australian, or about, 13 euros for as much as you could eat at a tourist class hotel that was probably only 100 meters away from the main shopping street in Beijing. So it was really centrally located as well. It wasn't out in the sticks where they were just giving you a cheap meal to try and get you to come there. Like, it was, the hotel itself was probably around, I think it was around $180 Australian a night. So maybe 90 euros, 100 euros a night. So it was still a fairly dear hotel to stay, but the food in comparison was really good. And beer was free with this buffet. They had a beer tap. You could just go up and fill your own beer as well. So food's relatively cheap, I think, unless you're going to buy. If you go buy McDonald's or KFC, you'll pay comparison onto what you would pay in Australia, and I assume what you would pay in Germany. So I think they probably just have a centralized price everywhere, and it's just that's what it is in most countries. So McDonald's in China was on the more expensive side compared to eating at a local restaurant for sure.
So would McDonald's have only tourists visiting, or because I don't know. I don't know what, because the price of food, is that for a normal average income in China, do you spend a lot of your income on food, or what's your impression there?
I think it probably is not the largest amount. I think it's pretty similar to here. Like, your larger amounts are going to be like your housing costs, water, heating, electricity, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
But food would definitely be a second place to that.
Yeah.
My family eats a fair amount of variety. There's lots of other stuff. And then we have a cleaning lady as well that comes on the weekend and cooks for us.
Oh.
So, yeah, we're pretty spoiled, actually.
Wow. I would love that. She comes and cleans, and then she cooks as well.
Yeah.
And she's from kind of middle to south. So the cuisine is completely different to northern food up there.
Oh, wow.
It's typically a bit spicier down south.
Yeah.
Oh, well, northern food, from what I've experienced, is typically less spicy. It's more carb-based. So lots of noodles, rice, kind of doughy things like buns. Whereas southern food is spicier. It's usually kind of heavier on vegetables and meat.
That probably has to do with climate, I guess. What you can grow north, you need something that can last through the winter, and then in the south, you can always have fresh vegetables, I guess.
Yeah,
that sounds the reason. Okay, interesting. So, what do you prefer?
Honestly, I'm a big noodles fan. We eat noodles a lot because Gracie really likes noodles too. But I actually really love spicy food. That's something I've found that I really like. We couldn't really eat spicy food too much here because Mum has a bad stomach. Yeah. But I love it all the time. I'm always eating mapo tofu, which is spicy tofu.
Oh, yeah.
And all of these other really, really delicious spicy food. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but if you eat Chinese in Munich, I assume you get things like, sweet and sour pork and honey chicken and
something
beef
like
and black
that.
Bean
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. Well, that sort of food is a specialty in China I think it's Cantonese, really, which is just a small area in China. But if you go north, or even where Willow lives, you won't see a lot of that anywhere, unless you might see the occasional dish on a menu that looks like a Western Chinese menu that we would, me and you would see in places, but you don't see that type of meal everywhere in China for sure, because it's just not eaten everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. It sounds like, I have never been to China, but it sounds like the first time I ever go, I will have to be prepared for a little bit of everything, I guess, in terms of food. Yeah. So have you had that experience where you get a bowl of soup and there's just something in there that you can't really recognize? Do you get a bit wary of trying things?
Yeah, I usually am pretty good. Like I always tell my host family, like just don't tell me what it is and I'll eat it and then tell me.
Yeah.
Right? Because like if I know what it is, I'm gonna freak out and I'm gonna be like, no, I can't eat it. It wasn't in a bowl of soup, but recently I tried sea cucumber for the first time.
Oh.
And oh my God, it was really bad. I didn't like it. Usually you eat it when you're like sick or pregnant, apparently. Like it's really good for your health.
Okay.
But the texture was just awful. It was like crunchy but wet.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a cucumber.
Yeah. Literally like a cucumber. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But it was like, it had like bumps and stuff on it as well. It was just awful. Couldn't do it.
And I'm as you are talking about it, I'm just thinking, who ever thought of, catching a sea cucumber and saying, well, I'll try to eat it. What kind of logic?
And they're so little as well. They're only about this big, I think.
So how big is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, so you can have
10, 20 centimeters.
Yeah. It's like a pickle.
Literally. And but like I feel so bad when I eat it because it still has its little face on it.
Oh, but it is dead.
You just got to bite into it.
And it is dead. It's boiled.
Yeah. All its guts are gone and everything. But like you can see where its eyes are. Like I don't even know if sea cucumbers have eyes, but it's where I imagine their eyes are. And I'm just like, oh, I can't eat.
Oh man. Yeah. But what about because Mark has been entertaining here at the podcast on insects and stuff. That's not the local dish there where you are.
Actually, there is a grilled bug restaurant in my city.
Okay.
I've never been. But I have a friend in China that's been that wanted to take me. I'm kind of scared of bugs though, so it's not for me.
Okay, no, obviously it wouldn't be for me either. But
Willow wimped out when we were there and we went to Beijing. Me and her had a deal that we were going to go and eat a spider or a bug or something like that, and we got to this shop in Beijing and she wouldn't have a bar of it. So hence when I went to Thailand, I had a grasshopper. Just to show that I could do that. It was crunchy, the grasshopper.
Yeah, we for people not knowing, the Wyld family has a very good Facebook page, and I think it was there, the Wyld family travel, Mark, that you posted these reels of you.
Definitely
trying the.
We had some footage of us eating the grasshoppers, and I was eating the grasshopper because my wife wouldn't have a bar of it, and my other daughter, Marley, who we'll get on the show one night to talk about travel as well. She wouldn't have a bar of it either, so it was sort of left up to me. But in reality, the grasshopper was the less of all evils compared to eating a scorpion or a spider or even a larvae sort of looking bug. So I went the grasshopper.
Of all the things you're mentioning there, the grasshopper would also be where I would start.
Yeah, definitely.
To ease into.
There was less body on the grasshopper. Like, he's pretty thin in the middle. He's mainly long legs. So the grasshopper was where it was at.
Yeah. So if Willow, if there's one dish that you would recommend, like a newcomer, a new beginner into the Chinese kitchen once they arrive and have their first experience in a real Chinese restaurant, what would that dish be?
For me, it's probably hong chao ro, which is red braised pork belly.
Oh,
it's so delicious.
Yeah.
My lao ye, which is Tia's dad, he makes it for me every time he comes, and it's literally my favorite dish.
Oh.
It's so delicious. Or xiao kao, which is Chinese barbecue.
Yeah.
So if it's a very social meal, usually you get like a lot of sticks, and it'll cost you only like 120 RMB, which is like 25 bucks.
Yeah.
And you get so much food, and you drink beer with it, and you have wonton soup with it, and it's just like it's a very social eating thing.
Yeah. Wow.
So if you've ever had like Korean barbecue, it's similar to Korean barbecue. You sort of they bring you out a little burner or a little hot plate thing with some stones and coals in it maybe, and you cook your meat there in front of you, or your prawns, or your potatoes, or your bits of corn, or basically they cook anything on there, mushrooms, you name it, they'll cook it on a stick in China and eat it because, as Willow said, it's one of them convenience things. They can just cook it on a stick. You can buy food on a stick everywhere. Lots of things come on a stick in China. It's all about the convenience of it all.
Well, that's convenience food has had like a bad reputation here in Germany or in Europe because usually in these convenience food stalls they use semi-prepared food, food or ingredients or things already partly prepared in a factory, and in order for it to be conserved and last until it's eaten, they use a lot of preservatives, or what do you call it? Food preservatives. Yeah. And you never know. You never know what's in it. So convenience food has had a bit of a bad reputation here, but I guess it's different because it sounds like they're literally, chopping the heads off an animal or chopping the vegetables in the garden behind them, and then they prepare it like 10 minutes later for you. So it's very different. It sounds like it's very different.
Yeah, so most food here is like really, really fresh.
Yeah.
What did we have at the markets? We had like a lamb skewer, and you can literally see like in there all the like racks of ribs and everything. Like they will, even if they're not like cutting it up there, it is all cut up at a supermarket and then transported straight there.
Yeah.
A lot of food is just, there is a lot of processed food involved in Chinese cooking, especially stuff like hot pot. You'll get processed crab or processed fish balls, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not processed in the same way that our food is. A lot of the time it's just mashed up and then kind of combined with other stuff.
Yeah.
It's really kind of, it's the same but different.
Yeah. If you think of Chinese science, like in terms of Chinese medicine, for instance, it's been around for like 40,000 years. They really have a long tradition of knowing what's good from nature, what has benefits. And so a lot of the time you will refer to Chinese medicine as things, if you get seriously ill, you could try out Chinese medicine. I guess it's the same way with food. They really have a long history of knowing exactly what's good for your body and in general what will just do you good to eat. So I guess there's reason behind this. It sounds like it's just just use your common sense and then but we have a very different tradition in the Western world. I guess it's just because a lot of what we eat is certainly not good for us.
Yeah. So Chinese people really focus on how you can improve your health and what's best for your body.
Yeah.
So we never, like, I remember the first time I had ice water in front of Nan. One second, give me a minute. Oh my gosh, I'm telling my story. They don't drink like ice water over there. It's always hot or like room temperature because there's a little bit of science to back it up, but it's kind of like an old wives' tale that it slows down your metabolism and you can't digest food as well if you have cold water.
Cold water, okay.
So they always have hot water. And the shock on Nana's face when I had a glass of ice water was I put it down. I almost didn't drink it. I was like, I can't do it. It's so embarrassing.
Okay. Wow. That's an interesting story because I wouldn't have thought. I love ice water. I love carbonated ice water. It's sort of my favorite go-to drink during any day. So I should stop that.
Yeah. I think there's only what I've read because I wanted to kind of know about it. And both of Gary's mum and Tia's mum are doctors. Or Tia's mum is a doctor and Gary's mum was a nurse.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of like look into it a little bit. From what I know, it's like if it does do anything, it's only like a little bit. So it's not something you should really worry about. But, you know.
No, but it's just those little things that they just seem to know in China. I've always said if I ever get seriously ill, God forbid, but if that should happen, I would certainly listen to my doctors and I would do whatever they say. But I can't help but thinking sometimes, you know, they have these traditions going back thousands of years in terms of medicine and what's good for your body. There must be something to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. And now let's talk about the future a little bit. You're staying there for like a year?
Yeah.
Another year now. Okay. And what's your plan long term in terms of China and Mandarin?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I'm kind of more of like a see how it goes kind of person.
Yeah.
Like this is what Tia always like, even in restaurants, Tia's like, I'll just order for you and you'll be happy with whatever I give you. I'm like, okay, that works for me. I like to kind of leave things up to fate, I guess. Like this language program, it kind of just like almost kind of just happened. Like,
yeah.
I just applied for it and I was like, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
It's the same with if I end up doing university at Chindera Uni. But I think if I don't do university there, I'll come back and do a teaching degree here and then go on to teach internationally is kind of, I guess, the hope right now. But things change and...
Yeah, but if it works out, you would be open to stay for longer in China and just university studies. Yeah, cool. That's a big. I no matter how we look at how things are progressing in the world these days, I mean, China is going to be a major player. So I guess there's good chance of a job somewhere. If you can speak Chinese Mandarin, I guess Mandarin is what you're learning, right?
Yes.
Speaking of Chinese, how many different Chinese languages are there?
There are 2 official Chinese languages.
Okay.
So there's Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yeah.
But there are dialects for each individual area.
Yes, of course.
So you'll hear some people say things like Shanghainese. That's the dialect of Shanghai.
Yeah.
But there's different ones for every area pretty much because of how big China is.
Yeah.
It's all really different.
How big is China? I mean, if compared to Australia, Australia is a continent, but
I think China is actually bigger by land mass. Yeah, we're gonna look it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Or it might be just a little bit smaller than Australia overall, but it's really big, and a lot of the time they're kind of separated, the north and the south, by the Yellow River.
Yeah.
So there's a pretty big difference between the areas.
So it's like two different countries almost.
Yeah. Well, recently on Xiaohongshu, if you know what that is, that's kind of like Chinese Instagram.
Yeah.
It's a good app. If anyone wants it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Southerners have been coming to the north to Harbin to see the snow up there, and they're quite small Southerners compared to northern Chinese people.
Okay,
so they're called little potatoes by the northern Chinese public right now. So in Harbin, there's a little potato statue to say thank you to the Southerners for coming.
Okay.
It's a big tourist thing.
So just looking this up, China is significantly larger than Australia. It's 9.6 million square kilometres, or the third largest country in the world, while Australia is the sixth largest country in the world with only 7.7 million kilometres. So China's about a quarter bigger than Australia, I would say, by the looks of that, which is pretty big size country, really.
It is.
Look at it that way, isn't it? So
Wow.
I think it'd sort of be like Australia. It's probably 8 or 10 hours if you flew from one end to the other, because I know, like, even just flying when you land in Shanghai to where Willow is, which is just the middle section of China, there's still a large amount above Willow and there's a large amount below Shanghai, and that still takes sort of like 2 or 3 hours to fly that distance. So I'd believe it'd be probably a good 10 hours from one end, 8 to 10 hours from one end of China to the other.
Wow, I would have never thought. And how, Willow, are you adjusting to the snow? I mean, being Australian and all.
I've never seen snow in Australia, but actually in Qingdao it snows.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Gracie and I sit curled up together with our little Milos and we watch it out the window. It's really awesome because I've never lived anywhere where it actually snows.
No.
Pretty sure we seen snow in Munich when we met Anders for
the last time you were
at that beer house.
Yeah, the last time you were here, it snowed. We had snow and ice. I mean, we met in the city center behind just behind the ice skating. There's a square called.
I think that was the first time we. I think that was the first time.
That was the first time. That was it was right.
And then we went to dinner at that beer house near the.
Correct.
Not the one near Marienplatz. It was the one up past the train station we went to.
Correct.
Yeah, and there was a lot of snow up there that night too. So we've seen a bit of snow in Munich over our time.
Yeah, the one we went to was Augustina Keller. True. You've been here a couple of times. The last time though we didn't have snow, as I recall, because I remember we said goodbye and we went down to at Hauptbahnhof. You had a hotel right behind the Hauptbahnhof, and we went down to the underground and. Normally those staircases, they're filled with snow and ice when we have that type of weather, and it wasn't. So,
because it was early December. I think it was early December that time we were there, and the time before when we met you and it snowed, it was in January. So we were in Munich, I think about the 1st of December or something. The second time we were there when we met you when there was no snow. So. Have you ever, later on in the year, it probably snowed, I assume.
Have you ever been here in the summer? I have been to Munich in the summer a few times. I think I've been to Munich maybe 5 times or 6 times. So I've been to Munich 2006 in the summer, I think. 2013 in the summer. Yeah, I have been a few times in the summer. It's nice in the summer, isn't it? So yeah, it is. It is. You have to come sometime during the beer garden season because just around the corner from where we live, one of the oldest beer gardens in Munich is reopening this April.
Oh, excellent.
After an extensive renovation, change of ownership, and it's a protected site, so you can't change too much on the original house facades and all of that. But there's been a lot of debate actually about the future of this beer garden, and now it's reopening, so it's great, and it's literally next door to us. So
what's it called?
It's called Mentersweige.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there are a few historic figures in German history, German Kaisers, kings, Bavarian kings, that has a relation to this place. So it has historic significance. So yeah, it's going to be good. It's probably before the renovation, it was one of the more pricey beer gardens. It's probably not becoming cheaper. I guess not.
Nothing's becoming cheaper, is it?
But
well, it's good that they're reopening and preserving, because it's good to preserve places like that. And I guess especially for beer gardens in the suburbs, more caters for locals who live there, such as yourself, than tourists who seem to flock to the ones.
Yeah.
Center of the city, like Hofbrau.
Yeah. Our area is not touristic. This is local.
We're going to one in the suburbs called. I think we went to one called the Taxis Beer Garden. I don't know whether it's still there or not. I can't remember. Can't exactly remember where it was. It was in Schloss-Nymphenburg. Somewhere in that area. It was a nice traditional beer garden as well. And one of the things I remember, I don't know whether they still do this, that was really interesting as a foreigner, was that you're allowed to just take your own food there. And That's that stage, and eat it and just buy a beer. Like in Australia, there's no way you'd be able to take, bought food from somewhere else or that you brought at home into a pub or a beer garden, anywhere like that. There would be a sign up saying no outside food or drinks, allowed. Because that's everywhere. So that was one of the.
That's the concept. The concept of the beer garden, of the traditional German beer garden, is that you are allowed to take your own. You can take a picnic basket or whatever, sandwich, whatever. You can bring whatever food you have, and you are actually. It's not forbidden to bring your own drinks. It's just not. It's frowned upon. You don't do that. It's bad. It's not classy. You buy your beverages at the beer garden. But the food you can bring, and this is actually in the area where we live. This is what we do. We just on any weekday or whatever, we just we will walk there with our food, with our evening meal, and just sit down and have a drink. We don't get drunk, or it's not excessive drinking. It's just one beer, and then we go back home. That's all. So it's just a place to meet, and when the weather's nice, a beer garden is typically full of old trees, and you sit in the shade, and there are tables and benches and
kids' playgrounds. I was saying kids' playgrounds.
That's something that my sister and brother-in-law, they live in London, and. And the first time my brother-in-law, he came to Munich and saw that a place where you can buy and drink alcohol, they also had a children's playground. It was a bit hard for him to comprehend. It was just, what?
I'll tell you what, he should go to Bali, because there's one called the Sanua Beer Garden, and they actually have a swimming pool in the beer garden. So you can put your kids in the pool while you sit around and drink beer, or you can get in the pool yourself while you drink beer. So quite unique. I always remember it because we've been there a few times. Me and Rebecca like it. It's a nice place to have a drink. We've taken Willow there, but I always think when I see things like that in Australia, that wouldn't fly, because someone had drowned, and then there'd be all sorts of trouble going on.
But the thing about alcohol in general, Germans are very pragmatic. There's just it's not a thing. You could have a glass of beer and that not be a thing. I mean, whereas in other places of the world, it's always you either do not drink at all, or you drink excessively. There's no in between, and that's just not a thing in Germany. You absolutely can have one beer and go home, and it's not a thing.
No, that's it.
Yeah. So it's but playgrounds at the beer garden. Obviously, it's a super concept, because the parents can have a chat with friends.
We've got to keep the kids happy.
And the kids are happy, and what's not to like? Not to like?
Well, that's it. So Willow, what's the drinking culture like in China?
Yeah, talk about that, Willow.
So drinking is a very social thing in China. It's not quite like Germany, where you can just have one beer and go.
Okay.
Usually it's kind of like the oldest person kind of controls when you drink and how much you drink.
Okay.
So when I drink with Gracie's grandparents, I drink a lot because he drinks a lot. So like, yeah, it's very social, but usually like if you're having dinner, you'll have a one like quite large thing of beer, maybe 750 mils, and you'll share it between a couple of people. So usually me and Tia will share one. Or if we get the smaller 500 ml bottles, I'll have one, and then Tia will make me drink half of hers.
Yeah.
But there's a different alcohol that's really, really popular in China that Dad hates, called multi. It's literally, it's like they mixed vodka and paint stripper together. It's really bad. I usually will have, and you have it in these tiny glasses. They're maybe 5 ml glasses, 10 ml. And that's enough, honestly. I usually will have a couple glasses. Yaya's favorite, which is Gary's dad, his favorite is multi, whereas Tia's parents really prefer beer. Mm-hmm. So you typically just drink whatever the eldest person at the table likes the most.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then work, it's kind of also really big on like work. If you go out with like your coworkers, you drink a lot. From what I've heard with Gary and Tia, Gary and Tia will come home absolutely smashed, like at the end of the night, just like dying. But another kind of, I guess, interesting part about Chinese drinking culture is you're not actually, or especially in Qingdao, I'm not sure if it's the same in the rest of China, but you cheers every time you take a sip.
Oh, so everybody takes a sip.
Yeah. So you're not supposed to drink separately. Everyone's supposed to drink together as a social thing. It's not like you take a sip. Usually you'll have a small glass of beer and a small glass of water with you, and you drink the water whenever you want, but the beer you drink as a group.
Out of respect for the beer.
We should always respect the beer. So I'm thinking about when we go back next time, finding the horriblest bottle of Australian alcohol I can possibly find and taking it back for because he made me drink this absolutely terrible Chinese liquor that I can't describe how bad it is. Like,
but I think
literally, it's like it's what I can imagine drinking methylated spirits or something like that would be like. Like, there's no taste. It just burns. It's this horrible. It's got no taste. And then when we went over there at Christmas time, I got a bottle of it for a present. So it's, it'll be sitting in my cupboard for a lot of years, or until they come out here to visit, and then I'll crack it open when they're when our Chinese family or Willow's Chinese family come from there and come out to visit, then I'll crack it open then, I think.
But I think Willow's description of a paint stripper mixed with vodka, that's spot on with, I can only imagine what that will taste like.
It's sort of worse than straight tequila, like, and straight tequila's not flash when you
no.
when you drink it. So it's it's definitely on the worse side of that. But it's highly regarded in China as an alcohol, and it's one of the most popular spirit in China. I would think maybe I'll just take some Jack Daniels or something back next time, or some Bundy rum, and make them do shots of that or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. What? So in general drinking culture, Chinese versus the Western world, do they drink more or less, or is it the same? Or
I'd say they probably drink more, to be honest. But
really, I hadn't thought of that.
I think as a group they drink more, but individually they drink less. Because bottles of beer are shared between like everyone.
Yeah.
It always looks like you've drank a lot. Like when Tia and I really get into it, we can share 5 or 6 bottles between the two of us.
Wow.
But, that equals out to only maybe 3 bottles each.
Yeah.
What about bottles of red wine, Willow?
Oh my God, I can't drink red wine. I vomited last time I had it for my birthday. No, because we got like this really nice bottle. It was Australian wine. And we had it for my birthday, and then Tia told me she put it all in like a canter. Is that what they're called? Decanter?
Canister.
Yeah.
Decant.
Yeah.
Canter.
Oh yeah.
And then like by the end of it, she wasn't drinking anymore. And she was like, well, Willow, you've got to finish it all. I was like, what the hell? I don't want to finish the rest of this. So I ended up like chugging half a bottle of wine.
Whoa.
And it was not good. The next morning really wasn't my favorite morning I've ever had.
I actually like red wine if it's a good red wine, but I can't have more than one and a half glass. Then I have a hangover the next day. It's just yeah. So I usually stick to beer.
Multi, right? The one that Dad doesn't like. It's 56% alcohol. Yeah, so it's really strong. And it typically you'll actually give multi as like a present because of how like highly regarded it is. It's number one alcohol in China.
Okay.
So stuff like that gets given as presents for people that you hold in a really high regard.
Okay.
So like Dad.
Oh, wow. So Motay, M-O-T-A-Y? Is that how you write it?
M-O-U-T-A-I.
M-O-U-T-A-I.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have to look it up. And is that just one particular flavor, or do they have more flavors?
They just sell the exact same one over and over and over again.
Is it the same company, or do many companies make this? Much like, I don't know, like bourbon, you know, how like there's Jim Beam and, you know, in a dozen different countries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is there a dozen different companies that make multi?
Yeah, so multi itself is a brand of, I can't remember what the name of the actual alcohol is right now. Yeah, told me. But multi is the most popular, highly regarded brand in China.
Okay.
And then that's the one that pretty much everyone will drink. It's stocked in restaurants, but you just buy a big bottle and share it.
Okay.
But then there are a couple different brands that do different types. Like you didn't get multi gifted to you. You got a different brand.
But 56%. That's it's more than German schnapps, and we don't. We will have one or two small glasses of schnapps after dinner, and that's it, because otherwise we get hammered.
Yeah, no, like it gets you drunk so fast. It's like Gary and Tia actually for Chinese New Year we went over to Yaya and Nana's place, and I hate multi. I can't have more than 2 glasses. So they actually had to run like with my glass away from Yaya so he'd stop pouring it for me so I could move on to beer instead. Because I get absolutely destroyed on multi. Oh, it's actually so bad. I really dislike it.
And especially if you've...
Sorry, quite funnily, it says it's made out of sorghum, which is a corn or a grain that's fermented, but in Australia it says they use that same grain as livestock feed. So in China, it says Mutai is a Chinese liquor made from fermented sorghum. It's a type of Chinese liquor and is considered one of the world's 3 major distilled spirits. So it's obviously whether that's because it's mainly drunk in China and China's got 1/6 of the world's population, I don't know. But
it's right up there with whiskey. Right up there with
obviously
whiskey.
It's fairly significant, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't know. We learned something today. This is the whole purpose of the podcast, that we learned something about.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So speaking of Qingdao and beer, we just booked a ticket to go back to Qingdao in the last week or so, and we're going in July, August, which is when the Qingdao International Beer Festival's on, which is often referred to as the Oktoberfest of Asia. So, we will be going back to the Beer Fest in Willow's hometown in July to drink a lot of beer, not just Chinese beer. All the big brands go, like Heineken and Superbock, and so it's a major festival. We went to the grounds when we were there in September, and it's actually, unlike Munich where they pull it down in the middle of the city, in Qingdao they actually have a designated area and these big tents stay up all year round for this 2-week period of the year. So it's a whole set aside and much like Oktoberfest, they have rides and shows and different things, carnival going on. So yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see. So yeah,
how many people can they host on a typical day in that space? Do you know that?
Well, they actually spread it around the city, and they have two or three different areas where they hold it. They have one major area on Qingdao West Coast, it's called. Willow's just having a look. Qingdao Beer Festival. I assume it's not as big as Munich.
Okay.
Hang on, Willow's got the info.
So it says on Google that in 2019, 7.2 million people attended the festival.
Wow, yeah.
And 2023 was expected to, that was last year, but I think it was about the same amount.
Yeah.
They have over 2,000 beer varieties from 40 different countries, music performances, art shows, sport events, beer drinking competitions. They do fashion shows relating to beer as well. It's a really, really big thing.
Okay, because the Oktoberfest in Munich is around 7 million people as well. So it sounds like the attendance is similar to.
It's similar. So yeah. So it should be exciting. I'm looking forward to going and having a look for sure. At it. So since we've spoke, we've planned another trip to. Actually, we're going to Cambodia for 4 days. Going to Phnom Penh for 4 days on the way. Then we're going to Qingdao for, I think, 10 days. And then we're going to Manila in the Philippines on the way home for 4 days. So never been to the Philippines. So it's a little bit of a taster. I'll have a look. I'd prefer to go to one of the islands like Boracay or somewhere like that. But within 4 days, we're just going to fly into Manila and have a look and see what that's like and head back to Australia. So
awesome.
So a bit of travel planned. And then Willow's home, and so there's been a bit going on this side of the world.
yeah. It's we're not planning as we've often talked about. We still have Anton in school, so we can't really plan travels at the moment. But it's great, and this is just another reason to talk. Continue talking about travels. So I love it when you book new destinations. It's great.
Oh, and three new airlines that we've never flown with before, so that'll be good. And 3 new airports I've never been to before because I really like having a good sticky beak around an airport. So it'll be. I've never been to Phnom Penh Airport before, even though I've been to Phnom Penh before. But we bussed in and out of Phnom Penh last time.
Yeah.
And we've got to stop in Shanghai on the way to Qingdao from Phnom Penh. So I've never been to Shanghai Pudong Airport either. So that'll be interesting. Actually, there's more. And then we're going to go to Hong Kong Airport as well as on transit from Qingdao to Manila and then Manila. So actually 4 airports I've never been to.
Wow.
So, which will give me some good YouTube content to make, I guess. And we're flying with Eastern China. So Eastern China Airlines. For one leg, I've never flown with them. Flown with Southern China before. Flying with Cathay Pacific, I've never flown with them before either. So, and flying with Cebu Pacific and their Philippines airline home. So,
wow, great. So, and all this is going on in what do you say, July,
August?
Yeah. Wow.
I had to wait. Had to build up a couple of holidays with me work. So I need to put off traveling for about 6 months in order to rack a few weeks worth of holiday up. And then I don't know, maybe in December, January, we'll probably be somewhere else as well. So we'll see what happens there. I'm just looking at a few different places and different options. One of them was Greece we were looking at the other day. So who knows? If I go to Greece, I'll end up going to I'll probably go to Istanbul for a couple of days and maybe a Sofia in Bulgaria for a couple of days as well. And since we're all in the same area, so we'll see what happens there.
Istanbul is interesting because it's right between. That's usually where Europeans say, this is where Asia starts.
Yeah, so it would be good.
Yeah,
it's quite expensive at the moment because inflation's like out of control.
It is.
In Turkey, like I had some friends who were there maybe a month ago, and they said like 2 kebabs and 2 cans of Coke was the equivalent of about $38 Australian or about 20 euros. So they said prices were a bit out of control at this stage. But who knows? If you're only going there for a couple of days, I guess you can bat it away and deal with it. But you wouldn't want to be staying there long term at them sort of prices, I guess. So
No.
we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Well, it has been really good talking to you both.
No worries.
And Willow, I hope to see you again on the podcast. It will be nice.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always. You will always have a place here, and but who knows when we can talk the next time? But it certainly was interesting to get your inside perspective of life in China. Absolutely.
I hope I offered some good insight.
Absolutely. At least the things that interest me. So, yeah.
Well, Willow's who do they live with? Gary and Tia. Gary wants to start a podcast with Willow. So who knows? Like, we may have some competition.
Yeah. Interesting.
And we'll see what happens. Maybe we can get Gary and Willow on one night from China. We can do like a 4-way Zoom call and
exactly. We could do that.
And all have a chat. So
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Anders, was great to talk to you again as we do, and we shall talk again next Monday.
Yeah, no, Monday is not good for me, but let's coordinate that, because Monday I won't be available, but we could do it maybe Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, no worries. We'll talk sometime next week and do another episode anyway.
Exactly. You have a good evening in your. It's evening, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it is evening. 8:30 here.
Yeah.
So
okay. Well, have a good one, and talk to you soon.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.